Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is denying that his leadership led to 2 MPs crossing the floor to the Liberals. Instead, he pins the blame directly on Prime Minister Mark Carney.
You know, it's a problem of Mark Carney's leadership that after Canadians clearly rejected a costly Liberal majority because they knew it would mean higher grocery prices and higher food costs, he is trying to manipulate his way through backroom deals to get that majority. My message to Mark Carney is that if you want a costly majority government to drive up taxes and deficits, then you have to go to the Canadian people and have them vote for it, not do it by dirty backroom deals.
Poilievre wouldn't say whether he thinks more Conservatives could defect, but Liberals are certainly keeping their door open.
Do you think you can convince more to come over? Is there some people ready to defect?
Let's say I'm getting lots of inquiries.
The Liberal government is now just 1 seat away from a majority. CBC's chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton sat down with Prime Minister Mark Carney this week for a year-end interview, and she asked whether he's comfortable getting a majority through defections.
Are you comfortable getting a majority by people crossing the floor?
Well, we're in a parliament, and when we pass legislation, we need more people voting for it than against it. I mean, that's the way. Last time I checked, that's the way Parliament works.
Right, but that's not what you're doing now. Now you're attracting MPs to the party.
MPs are attracted to what we're doing.
Are you comfortable getting a majority government through people crossing the floor?
I am comfortable commanding the confidence of the House of Commons and getting through the House of Commons, getting support in the House of Commons and obviously votes and support in the House of Commons for legislation that is going to protect Canadian communities, that's going to build this country, that's going to make our country more independent, more sustainable, more prosperous.
Time now for our party insiders. Greg McEachran is a former Liberal ministerial advisor. Fred Delory is a former Conservative campaign manager. And Melanie Richer is a former communications director for the NDP. Welcome all. Greg, I'm going to start with you. So no direct answer on whether or not there's active recruiting going on. Minister Hodgson says he's had inquiries, as you heard there. Is it fair game to actively try to tempt MPs to cross the floor?
Historically, yes, because it's happened before, and the Conservatives have taken in floor crossers. You can't despise something just when it's not benefiting you, and that's what's happening here. And you know, Pierre Poilievre is a very precise communicator. And I know we are kind of in the weeds in Ottawa sometimes, but if you listen to his answer, and there's a couple of stumbles there, that is always a sign with him that he is not completely happy with his answer or hasn't rehearsed it enough. So there's so much that the Conservatives are saying here in terms of messaging that it just seems kind of silly. But part of it is they're still trying to message. If it doesn't matter, if this isn't a big deal, why are you still talking about it? And if you're going to say, well, this person, you know, just ran a few months ago. Well, how did Pierre Poilievre become an MP? Somebody ran and then immediately quit. And what did Mark Carney do in that case? Did he wait and not call the by-election? No, he called the by-election as soon as he could and allowed Pierre Poilievre to come into the House representing a riding that had just elected another MP weeks before. So, you know, they took in Leona Alislev. They made her deputy leader from the Liberals to the Conservatives. So it just seems kind of silly that they're still talking about this. And look, it can go the other way. A close majority could become a minority. I worked in opposition in Nova Scotia where we were the official opposition. We lost a member and we went to 3rd place. You lose a lot of funding. It's only one person. But we lost funding, we lost staff because of that. So it can go in the other direction too.
So, Fred, to be fair, part of the reason why Poilievre is talking about it is because he's being asked about it. So just to be fair on that, I'm not sure how much.
Say no comment.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to give such a long answer, and you could say what Justin Trudeau did to Leona Alislev. I wish you well.
Okay, you could. Although, I did want to get to the other floor crossings that have happened in the past. But is there any way to have a floor crossing without a party actively going out and trying to get them? I mean, is it common for MPs to go knock on the door and say, hey, I think I'd want to come join your party?
I think maybe when you're one seat away from a majority, it's a very different ballgame. You know, we're usually in the situation where you need an entire caucus to support the governing party to give it a majority. So this is a very unique situation. What I find kind of puzzling is that it took so long to get to this. Right after the election, Carney seemed very happy with a minority. He didn't seem to get that he didn't have the full confidence of the House. You know, there was the question, will you make a deal with the NDP? And he dismissed it instantly. So it took them 6-7 months to realize, wait a second, we actually can't get anything passed. This Parliament, you know, in the last year, one bill has passed Parliament in Canada. That's not a sign of a very well-functioning government. So they need to go somehow to get that majority government. And if it's not through an election, this is a task to try to do it.
Explain the budget vote, though. That's the thing. I mean, like the Conservatives revealed by hiding behind the curtains that they didn't want an election. So without having a majority, he was able to do that.
The budget was a motion. The actual bill is still in second reading in the House of Commons.
Fair, but that was kind of a big moment. If you wanted an election, that was your time to make it happen.
But I'm just saying, only one bill has gone through this in the last year in Canada. One bill.
And to Fred's point, they won that almost accidentally. It was almost like, well, we're going to see what happens here. We're not going to have conversations with the other parties. We're going to see if it passes. And then it did. And it was like, all right, well, the motion passed, which is, I think, to the point of it doesn't really seem like they're outside of this going after MPs.
It was interesting to hear Don Davies, though, say things, especially committee, when his Justice Committee has been in a particular focus of the non-workings of the government right now. But he said, well, yeah, those committees would probably work better if we had gotten status, if they had given a status.
Absolutely.
How much truth do you think there is to that?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think one of the things that I keep going back to is that the Prime Minister seems to still sometimes operate as a CEO instead of a Prime Minister, and he forgets sometimes that you actually have to govern, and that is not easy, particularly in a minority government when you don't have majority at most of the committees. So if you do have majority, it's a little bit easier, but when you don't, you kind of need somebody to dance with. But I just want to quickly go back to Poilievre's interview that he was doing. He is giving Mark Carney an opportunity on a gold plate to say, you know what, you're right, I should call an election and get my majority. And I just feel like it's so interesting for Poilievre to keep being like, he needs to go to the people if he wants a majority. I feel like you're giving Mark Carney the perfect excuse to go to an election if you continue to do that. And I don't think it's to Pierre Poilievre's benefit right now for Mark Carney to do that. So I find it interesting that that's where he's going to message-wise on this whole thing, because if I was him, that's the last thing I'd want for Mark Carney to do right now.
So brinkmanship aside, Fred, there has been this raising, especially in Liberal circles, of past floor crossers that the Conservatives have benefited from, whether we're talking about Leon Alislav or in Harper's day, David Emerson, who went straight into cabinet. Why is Pierre Poilievre calling these floor crossings dirty backroom deals?
Not that I say I agree with the strategy, what they're doing, but what I say he's doing here is this is about changing a minority government to a majority government, which changes the whole outlook of this parliament and how it functions. When you have a regular member across to either a majority party or in a minority, it doesn't change anything or much of anything other than the symbolism of it that you may get, and maybe like Emerson's value at cabinet, that changes having someone like that. But this is a situation where we go from a minority to a majority, and if you prorogue the House, if he gets the majority over the Christmas break, prorogue the House, well, now they have a majority on the committees as well if they come back in the new session. And that just, the whole game changes. So the argument that say he's making is that your Canadians didn't elect a majority Liberal government, yet they're getting one if this happens. Of course, Canadians don't actually elect majority or minority governments. They elect individual members of parliament, and where they fit into that is what happens during the duration of a parliament.
Yeah, I'm not sure any Canadian goes to the polls saying, well, I hope this vote makes it this way or this way, or Melly, is it okay in some circumstances to have a floor crossing, but not if it's going to change the game? Like, I know I know the rules allow it regardless, but is there a divide there between how it's happened in the past and the impact it's had in the past and how it's happening now?
Well, what's funny is the NDP has always had policy that if you're going to cross a floor, you need to have a by-election and sit as an independent until you get elected under that party strike. And I think that's some of the conversations that were happening this week. Obviously, the Conservatives were saying that that's maybe something we should do, and they obviously didn't agree in the past and voted the bill down. So I think that that's interesting. But again, I think I don't know that folks at home are paying close attention to the games kind of being played or the conversations happening. I think they are looking to folks in Ottawa and are hoping that people work together and get stuff done in their benefit. So I don't know that it's actually making its way to regular people, and they are worried that it's going to be minority or majority. I think my feeling when I was on the plane with Jagmeet a few months ago was that people actually did want a majority government, and if not, a bigger minority. So I don't know that people are going to be that upset in the day-to-day of what's happening in the House.
Now, we did hear from the Prime Minister and that his agenda is attracting a spectrum of MPs.
It's a funny word, isn't it?
Do you think some of those inquiries that Hodgson talked about would be coming from NDP MPs?
Perhaps. I don't know. Yeah,
never
maybe.
Say never?
Yeah, never say never. The second that the PM said spectrum, I went, shoot. Because if you're saying spectrum, that's not conservative. So maybe if I think if the Prime Minister and his team are smart, they're figuring out who could benefit from being on their team. And I think we saw in the budget that there was a few nuggets for a few particular MPs. So that could be the path that they've been doing to do that. Now, most MPs are probably just as partisan as I am, so making that switch is very difficult, and you can only make it once. So I think that's something that people are taking to heart. I also think that we've spent, or our MPs have spent the last however many months criticizing this government for not doing what they think they should be doing. So to make the switch will be difficult, but you'll have to explain that to your electors. I hope not, but. Yeah, maybe. I think that's what Spectrum probably is pointing to, is maybe...
It doesn't prevent you from crossing. You can criticize the government, on one day, and then you can cross the next.
You can go from one Christmas party to the next,
absolutely.
certainly.
If you're not happy with the gifts at one.
Yeah, maybe the Secret Santa, I mentioned that yesterday. Is there a formula? Like, is there a theme when we look at the floor crossers, close ridings? Is there something that we should look at and go, okay, that person's ripe, that person's ripe? Is there something that the Liberals are looking at when they're thinking about who is most ripe for the picking?
I would, and again, I have no knowledge of anything concrete that's going on right now. And I think Michael Maws was an example of how it surprised everyone. And, because of what happened with Chris D'Entremont when he said that he was thinking about something, on the record to a reporter, there's implications of that. We all know about the rumors of threats to Matt Genereux. So this one was a complete surprise, and that way, no one could, potentially go at that person. The spectrum line that the Prime Minister said did catch my ear as well. I did go back and look at some of the reporting about who was expected to vote for, where, and some of that was inaccurate. But going back to look at it, might be worth taking a look. Look, if the NDP are really concerned about the Liberals' move to the centre and see it as a move to the right, what a great way to work on that would be to join the... Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Now.
And here
I tried.
Maybe just quickly on the formula. I do think that there are things to look for, right? As folks who are less partisan than others. I think folks who are more considered moderates in their party. And I think you want to look at people who either didn't win by a lot or are in a riding that could go either way. I think that's probably what you're looking at formula-wise.
Yeah, and Karina, to answer your question, I think more often it is a relationship that an MP has with another MP in another party.
Yep.
It's not super high level. There's not a war room where people are trying to target people. There are relationships, and you can have these conversations, and sometimes people say, you know what, this isn't going to work for me. It's not going to be a good fit. But then they may say, I am interested in this, and then it proceeds. I don't think that there's nobody's looking at a screen with a bunch of targets.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. There is no formula, really. It's all quite random in many ways. Like, Michael Ma was on no one's list, let alone just even I don't think any of us knew he was an MP. Like, there was a lot of he was just introduced to a lot of Canadians the night he crossed. So.
Back to Pierre Poilievre. I know you said you maybe wouldn't recommend the communication strategy or endorse it, but even after, we're talking 3 Conservative MPs, 2 that are floor crossers, 1 who's decided to leave politics. There is questions, that has raised many questions about Pierre Poilievre's leadership. He has a leadership review in January. Is there a number, or what number does he have to? We're expecting him to be endorsed, but is there a number he has to reach for that to be, okay, it's a true thumbs up to your leadership?
That's always a debate at every leadership commission. What is the number? Technically, it's always 50% plus one. That's never even close to enough. I think Joe Clark was 66 points something or other when he didn't have enough. Typically 70s is what you would expect. But I mean, he's got such a stranglehold on this party and so much support. I think his numbers are going to be way, way higher than that. So I don't even think it's going to be debatable. I don't think people will be coming out of there thinking, was that number high or low? I think it's going to be incredibly high on how it's going.
Okay, well, thank you guys very much.